Hi, it's story time. All right, so this is On It Imagination with the Ethical Asshole. I am your host, the Salty Bitch. So my cat, one of them, decided to chew up my phone cords or my headphones. I said phone cords like it's 1988, right, guys? So I woke up this morning and found like a chew toy. So I don't have headphones anymore. I have to go get new ones. Yeah. So these don't work anymore. So I apologize for the audio. I'm in the process of fixing it. Now, I in my last video, I was talking, I introduced Mr. Spieds and I completely forgot. I'm like, oh yeah. It's one of those things where it's so normal to you that you don't think about it. And I'm like, yeah, it is really us. So I have to, I, I'll tell you. It was 1991, and it was actually my first year in a public school system. I went from a DIY learning educational system to the U.S. government's educational system. So this is my first exposure to the second educational system. Mr. Speeds was amazing. He never yelled. He never raised his voice, but boy, did he control the classroom. And he was born and raised in Germany. And it was the first time you get into the classroom. It's like this, wait a minute. There's a German teaching American history in an American school. Interesting. And in 1991, coming from an Orthodox Southern Fundamental Baptist community, this was like mind-blowing, okay? Mind-blowing. And this was literally the first introduction of everything you thought about the world is wrong. So it was wonderful. I was 11 years old and I walked into this classroom and it was like is this possible? All right, we're going to do this. And of all the teachers, and I'll tell you, I'll tell you, I had, everyone else, of course, was American, but this one gentleman was German born. So I got to see how they teach. And never raised his voice. Never raised his voice. He, well, I'm going to say it, commanded respect because he treated you with respect. Boy, he called each and every one of us sir and miss. I was Miss Anna. He addressed each and every one of us as sir and miss. Reciprocity, so we called him Mr. Speedies. And we respected him. Okay, so I have to explain this to you. In Central New York, there is a region food only known to that region that I know of. I think it's only known to this region, called a Spiedy. A Spiedy is a marinated chicken sandwich. Some places in the world have them, but the marinade sauce that is located here is called a Spiedies marinade. And it's a very, very unique recipe to the point where we have a Spiedies festival. So that region is known for its Spiedies. It's like one of the main foods that we eat. It's also German, which is amusing because of our Dutch heritage that's very profound in that region. And the fact that this man's name was Mr. Speeds, we all nicknamed him Mr. Speedy. So if I give him like 2 or 3 different names, Speeds, Speedy, and Speeds, or Speedies, it's because of this food. So we would call him Mr. Speedies. And he knew how to obtain respect authentically from children. And it started with him addressing each and every one of us as Mr. and Miss. And we reciprocated. We okay, well, you address him as Mr., which we're going to, but he extended that to us. And it commanded this massive calm around the room of, oh, in his room, I was a Miss Anna. And when we left his room to go into the other classrooms, that went away. And immediately it was a more relaxed, it was a more casual atmosphere. And we were forced to give respect to a teacher, all the other teachers who never gave it back to us. That created a massive divide between the American teachers and the students because you're treating me like shit. You're not respecting me. Why do I have to respect you? Double standard. Children are very sensitive to the double standard. Now, we would walk back into Mr. Speedy's class, and that double standard vanished instantly. With the other teachers, it was, I'm the teacher, I'm superior, and I'm going to remind you that I'm better than you, so you have to call me Mr. or Mrs., but I'm not going to give you the same respect. And that was the aura and the atmosphere of that classroom. But then you walk into Mr. Speedy's classroom, and it was, hello, Miss Anna. Please take your seat, Miss Anna. I would like to start my classroom now. Yes, sir. Reciprocity. And with Mr. Speedy's, I was his equal, and I respected him because I had lots to learn from him, so much to learn from him. And I was very shy that year, so I did a lot of silent observation. But the class, it was extraordinary. There were the boys, there were some boys that would like rile up and try and challenge him. And he'd do like a whole, back at them, very playful. He knew how to play with the boys. He knew how not to cross the line. He knew how to play with the people who'd like to challenge him. He knew how to humble them, and he did. He knew how to humble them and do it in a way that preserved who they were. This is a science of psychology that no one knows about. It is the subtle science and art of humiliating someone while preserving the self. And it's a very refined teaching tool, and he had it mastered. It was beautiful. So he would use humility to put them down just enough to go, you are the student here. You will respect me, but I'm also going to handle you with care and gentleness and get you right where you need, because you need to be reminded that you are a student in my classroom. And that was reciprocity. Now, we would all watch and observe this. And as we watched and observed the way he handled these children, we learned from the observation. So you have people who learn through observation, and then the children who learn through the doing and the challenging. So it's like, well, I'm not going to be dumb enough to challenge this man, but I'm going to learn anyway and just observe. So some people learn as spectators, and some people learn as doers. And the doers that challenge the teacher must be skilled and gentle enough to go, oh, I'm going to break you down just a little bit, while also holding you gently and preserving you. And he had this skill mastered. Now, in the other classrooms, when we went into the American classrooms, we had American classrooms, and we had this one German classroom. We would go into the other American classrooms, and that was all gone. It was the teachers were bullies. They were screaming at us. They were shouting at us. They were insulting us, humiliating us. And they weren't calling us sir or ma'am. They were just degrading us. And we would talk to the teacher about this. We would talk to Mr. Speedies about this. We'd go into his classroom, and we would reflect. We were consciously aware of it. We discussed it with him. He gave us a psychologically safe place to talk about it with him. Why are our teachers so mean to us, but you're not? We asked him this question. And he was like, we all have our way of doing things. I was born in Germany. This is how we do it. Respect for that culture, respect for us, respect for him. And boy, was it cycle. It was a cycle. It was beautiful. I learned so much about teaching from Mr. Speedies, about how to handle children, about how to, not even handling. And that's it right there. It's in our language. You don't want to say handle children. You don't handle people. You don't deal with them. It's how to navigate, how to negotiate, how to work with them. It's a difference between, all right, I got to control the situation, versus I need to work with this situation as a team. We got to figure it out together. And it's all in the language. Are you handling a child? Are you controlling a child? Or are you working with a child? Mr. Speedies worked with us, and there was no conflict. There was this one day, there was about 5 of us, and I don't know why there was only 5 of us. It was like a holiday, and everyone had gone home, but I was staying after with about 4 other girls. And we were all in the classroom working on projects. And he said, all right, I'm going to go step out for a minute. I'm going to go down to the principal's office. I'll be right back. And we're like, okay. And one of the girls, Adriana, she went, yay, party. And he just very quietly came back, looked at her and said, Adriana, come with me. And she was like, oh. And she walked, and he was just babysitting her. Like he pegged, all right, there's the troublemaker. You're going to come with me. He never raised his voice. He had this level of talking, and that was it. He never, ever raised his voice. This was his level of talking. If we did something wrong, it was, that's it. Yeah, that's it. It was strict. You did not want that. You did not want that. And he would, That's all he would do. That was literally the most aggression we ever saw from him. And when you got to 3, he would just point. And you knew, oh, you're going to the office. That's all that needed to be done. That's all he ever did. Literally, slap his hands, one. And it was like he did this. And it was, and if when he did that, the whole classroom, okay, never ever yelled, never raised his voice, didn't have to. Not him. That was class. I'll tell you, he didn't have a class, he had class. Mr. Spieds was like, and this was my introduction to God. I love the opportunity because I'm sitting here like, wow, data. Like this classroom was amazing. And then you walk into the American classrooms and it was like Lord of the Flies. It was Lord of the Flies. It was exactly like Lord of the Flies. And you had these teachers stepping in, just they had no idea how to control children. They had no idea how to command respect, how to earn it. Oh, they know how to command respect. They know how to force respect. And here's the thing, this is when you're looking at respect. You have genuine respect, and then you have fake respect, which actually isn't respect at all. Abusers thrive on fake respect. But when it's genuine respect, you have to earn it. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter what you've done. You've got to earn it. And through Mr. Spieds, we were able to look at genuine respect versus that fucking garbage, that faked respect. It wasn't respect at all. It was enslavement. It was submission. It was humility. It was degradation. American classrooms are built off of degradation. Yeah, that's right. And I walked away from Mr. Spieds' class with a very clear, defined, so this is what respect in a healthy classroom looks like. It was beautiful. The next year after that, I got Mr. Brooks, and he's the one who did not tell us that we really need to check the books because the government is dictating every word out of his mouth. And he did not tell us that the textbooks for history were 100% doctored by the government. And we need to think and question everything and check our resources. But he didn't tell us that. That's Mr. Brooks. And Mr. Brooks was my teacher I had him 4 times. He was my 7th grade teacher. No, he was my 8th grade teacher, my 9th grade teacher, my 11th grade teacher, and my 12th grade teacher. So I had Mr. Brooks a lot. And he and I was that student to stay after, and I would drill him on the subjects. He was also the teacher, Mr. Brooks was, who he went to school every summer. And he had textbooks on his desk. And I'd be like, you're a teacher. Why do you have textbooks on your desk? Because I'm a teacher. And I said, I don't understand. And he said, teachers are life learners. They never stop learning. That's all we do is learn. So I go to school. You go to school? Yep. I teach you here and then I go to school. And what do you do in the summer? Because no one else is. He goes, oh, I go to school. Well, what about everybody else? Oh, yeah, you just keep asking those questions. That was what that was Mr. Brooks. Every time you keep asking those questions. Every time I was renowned for that, constantly asking him the questions that I found got him right into that little space where the government says I cannot pass. You just keep asking those questions. All right, I'm going to. And every time I got to that point where this is where I cannot answer anymore, he would just go and pursue and look. And he taught me through that, go dig. Go dig. And I'll tell you, it was like night and day. It was night and day. I learned so much from Mr. Spieds and Mr. Brooks on how to teach. I had one teacher. She was a terrible teacher, except one thing. This woman used story. She was the drama teacher, English and drama, English and theater. So when we did Shakespeare, oh, we got a performance. We got a performance. She did a lot of really abusive things. But one thing she got solid was storytelling. So this one teacher, I got her 3 times. It was storytelling. I had a storyteller for a teacher. It was beautiful. We didn't read. She didn't lecture. We performed. There was this one day, she was married to Mr. Brooks. And there was this one day we were doing Romeo and Juliet, and she launched into this massive, the balcony saying from Romeo and Juliet. And in the middle of it, boom, Mr. Brooks comes in, and the two of them start performing the entire balcony saying of Romeo and Juliet. And so there was my history teacher and my English teacher doing this whole reenactment of Shakespeare. That's how I got Shakespeare. And I'll tell you, story, really. Then I went into this other classroom. This is again, Mr. Brooks again. This is my other English teacher, Mr. Jones. And we were doing Hiroshima that year. And it was the same year that we were doing World War II in Mr. Brooks's history class. And Mr. Brooks did this. He was like, he approached Mr. Jones and he was like, I have an idea. And he's like, okay. And he said, this is what we're going to do. And he said, we are going to join forces and combine English and history. This is the first exposure I got to interdisciplinary studies. And I got to see the power of this. I got to experience the power of this. And he put them together. And I had English and history back to back. And it was World War II. And we would get the history. And then we would go to English class and we would read the book Hiroshima. And we would analyze the literature perspective and then go back to history class and analyze the historical. This is interesting. And good God, Mr. Brooks knew how to do this. He knew how to do this. So he would show us, all right, now remember, I had Mr. Spieds. A few years ago. So I had a German teacher. Literally 3 years prior. And then I had Mr. Brooks going, here's a perspective for you. Here's World War II. Now I want you to go read this book, Hiroshima, that Mr. Jones is having you read. Look at history through the history book and look at history through this person who was actually there who wrote this book. Oh, while we're at it, here's the Diary of Anne Frank. It was this beautiful scope where I had this teacher literally move my scope around. This is what a book is. It's a scope. So I got to see this scope with Hiroshima. And then I got to see this scope with the Diary of Anne Frank. And then I got to hear what the history books were telling me from a teacher who said, don't trust everything you read. Witness from Japan, witness in Germany, history book. And I had a very admirable German history teacher that I respected. Boy, that gave perspective. That was the year that I learned that in order to see the truth, you have to accumulate as many perspectives as possible, put them together, and then study the truth as you see it. But then grab another perspective, put it in like a perspective soup. That's going to become a thing I do, perspective soup. Oh yes, that's a course. It just got birthed right here, right now, perspective soup. And I got to see how it changed the truth or my interpretation of the truth. It didn't change the truth. Truth is a constant. It doesn't change. It's consistent. So I'm looking at truth and I got to see it cleaner, sharper, clearer. And then I grabbed another perspective and I dropped that in. And then I got to see the truth become brighter, clearer, stronger. And then I realized, oh, I just need more perspectives. So then I realized that you don't want one perspective, you want as many perspectives as possible. And that's when I realized the academic disciplines are the 18 perspectives that allow you to look at truth so you can see what it really is. But you got to collect the perspectives. You have to look at the truth from the points of views of all the artists, the musicians, the scientists, the physicists, the chemist, the biologist, the logician, the author, the writer, the philosopher, the mathematician. And then when you put all of this together, that is when you can get an idea of what the truth really is. But if you're just running off of one or two perspectives, not going to work. That is what my history teacher taught me. It is a very different way of experiencing education. That was the year that I learned that education is really about perspective and your relativity to truth, so you can determine who you are. Perspective, see, this is math. This is math and physics. Perspective, truth, self. Triangulation. Now you know who you are. Thank you so much. May the kindest of words always find you.